What's up, guys? It's Toad. This is Better Off Dead. College football week 2 edition. Week 2 in these sports, well, in football especially, tends to be the overreaction week where you see people overreact to one single game. And when it's a sport that's just played on a weekly basis like this and you have fewer games in the season, you tend to see the most overreaction. People just wildly overreact to that single game that they saw last week. It's like the only statistics that they have so far, the only time they've seen these teams before. So you kind of probably already know what I'm going to say, although unfortunately in college football, week 1 does have a lot of like cupcakes playing against great teams, so you don't see that many like wild results to overreact to, but there are a few. So I do have 3 plays this week, and right off the bat, the first the first play this week is one of the largest overreactions that I've ever seen. Nebraska at Colorado. Colorado, could they look any better than they did in week 1? Last week, they went into TCU. They won the game. They looked awesome. TCU, highly ranked team. Colorado kind of came from out of nowhere, scored a ton of points against them, and won the game. I think probably it was in the 40s. I can't remember I have it right here. 45-42. I mean, you can't really look any better than they did, and everybody's just hyping Colorado up now. Everybody's talking about how Deion Sanders is their coach. I don't really care. I mean, he's a new coach there. Colorado, their defense still is non-existent, and TCU's defense is non-existent. TCU, I think, just wasn't totally prepared for that game, wasn't ready for what Colorado was going to be throwing at them. We don't want to overreact to one game like this. TCU was a 21-point favorite in that game and, of course, got upset, but that's just a wild result. I mean, you could say that Colorado is better than we thought they were. Sure, maybe TCU isn't quite as good as we thought they were. TCU is still a lot better than Colorado. Colorado, off of that one result, now vaults into the top 25. Like, really? Let's calm down a little bit here. Calm down with Prime Time, Coach Prime, whatever the hell. They are not a top 25 team. And couple that with the fact that Nebraska played a really ugly, low-scoring game against Minnesota. Nobody is going to want Nebraska in this game at all. Who would? I mean, it looks like they have no offense. Colorado has a really high-scoring offense. How is Nebraska going to do anything against Colorado? Well, that's because Nebraska actually plays defense, unlike TCU and unlike Colorado. And Nebraska also runs the football on offense. They're about time of possession. They can slow the pace of the game down. They can keep Colorado's offense off the field. And Colorado, after that massive win, are in like a huge letdown spot. And the line, which we're getting Nebraska as an underdog here, so this might actually be getting to 3.5. I took Nebraska at 3 being the key number. I recommend it at obviously at 3 or anything higher than that. Take Nebraska plus 3. Put some amount on the money line as well. Sprinkle a little bit. 10% is what I recommend. You can see here Colorado's getting 84% of the tickets and only 76% of the money. So public is all over Colorado. They're massively hyped. And the lower money percentage, as I've talked about before, indicates that more of the larger bets are coming in on Nebraska, even though the line has moved Colorado up. And actually, the opener being listed at 2.5 doesn't even really tell you what's going on here. If you look at what the look-ahead lines were, because some books put out a line on this game before week 1 happened. So I like to look at it more in the NFL because you can really see week-to-week overreaction. If you look at that week earlier look-ahead line, tells you what the line was a week earlier, then you can really see how the market has overreacted to that one set of results from that 1 week. And you might want to fade that overreaction. In this case, before those games were played, the line for this game was Nebraska minus 8.5. They were an 8.5-point favorite at Colorado. And now we're looking at the line being 11 points different, basically, than what it was that possibly 12, possibly even more than that. That is one of the biggest swings in 1 week that I've ever seen off of 1 week's results of football games. It's completely insane, the reaction to this. And everybody's hyping Colorado. Everybody disagreed with me. And right when that game ended, I said, I'm going to look to go against Colorado. They're in a huge letdown spot. The overreaction is just massive. I mean, this has to be the best play of the week. Nebraska +3. And to make it even better, Nebraska has not played since last Thursday. So they have 2 extra days off. Colorado could have spent the entire offseason preparing for that big game, knowing they're going to face TCU, a ranked big-name team, right off the bat. But, they're a Big 12 team that doesn't play defense, whatever. Now Colorado has that quick turnaround time and have to play Nebraska, who does play defense way more than TCU does. Yeah, I don't know what more I can say about this, but this is massive overreaction time. Nebraska +3 is going to be the way to go in that one. The next one I'm going to look at is kind of similar, is Texas State, and we're getting into the afternoon games on Saturday now. I believe the other thing about the Nebraska game, by the way, is that's a 12 p.m. noon early start time there, so Colorado has an even shorter turnaround time to have to play in that one on Saturday, so that just makes it even better, I think, Nebraska with that extra time to prepare for that. All right, the next one, yes. Texas State is in a similar spot, you might say, as they pulled off a gigantic upset of their own. And this was, they went into Baylor and upset Baylor on the road as an even bigger underdog, a 26.5-point underdog. And this game, as you can see, Texas State got out to a big lead. Baylor tried to come back, couldn't quite do it. This is a huge win for Texas State, for that program, winning against a big-name team, a Big 12 team, big conference team, a team that's known to have a really good football program in Baylor. So I think Texas State is just in a letdown situation here. And if we look at the line on this, though, so this line keeps going up. So even though you're seeing kind of the ticket money discrepancy that I don't actually really love at this point, but you could see that the money has come in to some degree on UTSA, Texas San Antonio, and moved the line up. I laid 12.5. I think if you get anything lower than 14, since 14 is the key number in football, it's the 2 touchdown mark. If you get anything between 11.5 and 13.5, I think it's a good go to lay the points with Texas San Antonio, UTSA. Texas State looked really good. Huge upset against Baylor. I think that you could be overreacting to them pulling off that huge upset of 26.5 points coming in against Texas San Antonio. Texas San Antonio is definitely the better team. And as I bet Texas San Antonio last week, unfortunately, and I think they outplayed Houston in a lot of ways statistically in that game, but just turned it over too much. I think they had 3 turnovers in the game, and it just did them in. But as I was mentioning last week, Texas San Antonio has a lot of returning starters, a decent amount of experience from a team that made a bowl last year. Texas San Antonio, you like to see that early in the season with that experience. They are definitely the better team over Texas State. So I like that one. I'm going to say lay the points with UTSA. And people might react to this and come in and say, hey, Texas State went in and beat Baylor, and now they're getting 13 against an 0-1 Texas San Antonio team. Seems like there might be value there in taking them as an underdog. I don't think so. UTSA is definitely the better team here. Harris, their quarterback, had a bad game last week, and he is a really good player, though. I like UTSA here for sure. So that's going to be play number 2, UTSA. I am listing it at -12.5. I think you'll probably get 12.5 or 13 right now for that number. And finally, we'll go. I'm only doing 3 plays this time. The card is short on what I tend to look for. A lot of times I'll have 4. 4 tends to be like the average that I have in a college football weekend. In week 2, I like going against those overreactions, but because there were a lot of cupcakes in week 1, there just aren't that many. But I believe there is an overreaction to be had here with this Oregon-Texas Tech game, and I'm taking Texas Tech as a home underdog, which I do like those home underdogs of decent size like that quite a bit in general, but I think the sevens are kind of gone. It's at 6.5 right now. You can list it at Texas Tech plus 6.5 is the play, although I think you could wait on it a little bit, and if it gets down to 6, whatever, you can still take 6 or 6.5. It might get back up to 7 if you think the public is coming in. You can see here the public is fairly substantially on Oregon because, of course, why wouldn't they be? Oregon, a known quantity, known to be a pretty good team in college football. A lot less of a percentage than that on the money, though. So you can see, and because this is some reverse line movement here. So the line is moving against where the public is, going down. And you can see that less of the money, even though the majority of the money is still on Oregon there, because so many of the tickets are on them. A lot fewer of the big tickets are on them. This tells you that the bigger money has come the other way on Texas Tech, and I like it. And as you can see here, Oregon is coming off scoring 81 points, which people were commenting on last week. They did not take their foot off the gas, even though that game was well in hand, and that just looks like total destruction. Oregon's a ranked team. Looks like they're going to come in and just absolutely annihilate like whoever's in front of them, basically 81 points, just totally insane. And on the other hand, Texas Tech, as a double-digit favorite, I think they were about 12-point favorites, went into Wyoming and lost the game outright. So I think you're getting a lot of value because of that. Both sides of this. Oregon looked really good in game one. Texas Tech looked awful in game one. And this is kind of that overreaction on both sides that you can get after having one result for each team that's kind of like lopsided in a way. So, and Texas Tech going into Wyoming, you could say that maybe they were looking ahead to a bigger game against a ranked Oregon team, even though it was the first game of the season. Maybe they took Wyoming a little bit for granted because Wyoming's not really that good, not really known to be that good. Going and playing in Wyoming is a bit of a tough spot sometimes. I think it's higher elevation probably too than Lubbock, Texas. But either way, Texas Tech I think is going to be totally focused after getting upset like that coming in against Oregon. Texas Tech does have the ability to score. They're not Portland State, who is an FCS team who Oregon beat. So Oregon played a complete cupcake, whereas Texas Tech at least played an FBS school in week one, and those lopsided results are just going to mean that nobody's going to want to take, Texas Tech in this one. So I do. So Texas Tech plus 6.5 is going to be the third one. So recapping those three plays, we're going to go with by far the best play, one of the best plays that I think I've seen. So hopefully I get it right because a lot of people are disagreeing with me on it. But that first play that I mentioned, Nebraska plus 3, UTSA, Texas San Antonio minus 12.5, and Texas Tech plus 6.5. Or if you can hold out, potentially get a plus 7. Obviously, I would do that instead of the plus 6.5. But we can rate it at plus 6.5. I only went 1 and 2 last week, so hopefully, or 1 and 2, I think. Hopefully, this goes better than that. Let's get it. Or maybe I'm better off dead. Peace out. And I will be doing an NFL show in a few minutes, probably. Peace.